welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sam, and I have a confession. I have a bad habit, and it is a habit that I really need to break. I have a tendency to buy the entire series before I read the first book, and sometimes that works out great. Sometimes it doesn't go so well. So today's video is going to be a list of series that I have bought the entire series before I read the first book, and whether or not that was a good idea. This is not going to be an exhaustive list by any means. We would be here all day long if I pulled out every series that I have bought the entire series for before reading the first book. We would be here forever. But I picked some. So before we get into the actual books, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon will notify you when I post. Let's jump into the series. So these are in absolutely no particular order. I made a pile and now I'm picking off that pile. That's it. I just pulled them off as I saw them on the shelf. So, first book, Truly Devious. I bought all 3 books. I hated all 3 books. I did read all 3 books, so I keep it because I did get through them all, but I was so disappointed by this series. Basically, if you have never read the series, it is a young adult mystery thriller that follows Stevie, and she is accepted into this prestigious boarding school that has kind of like a not so great past. The founder of the school's wife and daughter went missing years and years ago. They were never found, presumed to be dead, and Stevie is determined to solve that mystery. That's how she got into this school, was through her like detective skills. I had such high hopes. Didn't get what I was looking for with this book. Didn't really care about the mystery. What I got was not what I wanted. I wanted something like the Inheritance Games, which I actually read the Inheritance Games after the series and was like, this is what I was looking for in Truly Devious, and did not get. So yeah, not worth it on this one. Next book that I bought the entire series before reading the first book was Caraval. Absolutely worth it. I read all 3 books in like a day. Literally, I think within 24 hours I had read all 3 books. I bought these as a set right after Christmas 2018, I think it was 2018, and they were half off at Barnes & Noble, so I got the whole set for $30. It was amazing, and I flew through this series. I've now read it twice. I adore this series. This book follows our main character, Scarlet, and she and her sister, Donatella, have wanted to go to Caraval, this like magic circus type of thing, like almost like a murder mystery night mixed with a circus. And it's run by this man, Legend, and nobody really knows anything about him other than he runs Caraval. And the girls have been dying to go to this for years. They have been writing letters to Legend begging him to hold Caraval on their island because they are not allowed to leave. And then they end up kind of finding a way off the island. They end up at Caraval. Donatella goes missing, and Scarlet has to team up with Julian, who is very secretive. And they end up having to play the game in order to find Tella. And nothing is as it seems. Scarlet can't trust anyone. Nobody is who you think they are. And it is just so much fun. And I would highly recommend the series. One of my favorite young adult fantasies of all time. Next up, we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. We're only going to talk about the duology here. I have never read the ones beyond this. I did read Shadow and Bone. That's not on this list. Then I read this one. I haven't read like The King of Scars or whatever. I think that's part of this world too. I don't know. I haven't read any of those. Not worth it in my opinion. I bought both books. Didn't like either one. Not into heists. Not into the world. Shadow and Bone was okay. Like, I didn't hate that one. Getting through these 2 was painful. I did read both. And honestly, like, it's not that it's a bad book. Like, I think a lot of people really like it, and I can see why. It just wasn't my type of story. Like, I personally was bored, but that doesn't mean that, like, it was bad. Like, it's great writing. I just didn't care. Next up, we have The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This book, I bought the whole series. I was told that I needed to buy the whole series, and I was told that I needed to buy them in pretty editions because I was going to love it that much. And that was so correct. I have actually only read the first 2. I haven't finished the 3rd one yet, but I just know I'm going to love it because I loved the first 2 so much, and I'm so excited to read the 3rd one. But basically, this series, we have like the typical Dark Lord, evil world type of thing, and then we have this band of thieves that are trying to like overthrow the Dark Lord, and then there's also like magic. So we have like mistings and mistborns, and it's like a really unique magic system that I really can't even explain, but it's definitely like a high fantasy. You got a little bit of romance in there. The romance, in book 2 it gets better. In book 1 it's very insta-lovey. Like, you don't go into this for the romance. You go into this for the high fantasy action. Don't go into this for the romance. But I would highly recommend the series. I really, really enjoyed it, and I just think it's so much fun, and now I want to read like a lot more high fantasy. Next up we have To All the Boys I've Loved Before. This is by Jenny Han, and this follows Lara Jean. It's also a movie. A lot of people know about this now, but basically Lara Jean has fallen in love with 5 boys in her life, and every time she needed to get over a boy, she would write him a letter and put it in her little hat box, and just kind of like keep the letter. It was like journaling, it was therapeutic, and basically just like spelling out all of her feelings on paper. Well, all of those letters accidentally get sent to those boys, so she's obviously mortified and ends up kissing one of the boys to get the other boys to think she doesn't like. It's a whole thing. I've never read the 3rd book, so I didn't finish the series. The first one was good. I have reasons for not finishing it, and it's not that the series isn't good, it's not that the book isn't good. Like, it is good, and it's really cute, and it's a great romance. But there was one thing that I really didn't like, and I just couldn't get over it, and I realized it wasn't going to resolve itself by book 3, so I put it down. Yeah, it's not even about her. It's about her sister, so it's fine. I would still recommend the series if you like romance. I just don't want to finish it. Next up, we have The Iron King. I don't know if this one is cheating or not. I read the first 2 or 3 books years ago, like in 9th grade, so like 11, almost 12 years ago. I put it down because it's still young adult, but there was some content in it that I wasn't quite ready for at 14 years old. So I put the series down, and I picked it back up like 2 or 3 years ago, and I bought the whole series because I was like, alright, I'm ready for this now. Like, I'm an adult, I can handle this now. And like, I can, but the writing style is not what I remember it being. It's this very weird mix of a book that reads like it's for younger kids. Like, it reads like a preteen book, but it has more like new adult, not even new adult, like upper level young adult content. So like, I wasn't ready for it at 14, but then by 23 I was bored with it. So I never finished it. I think I got through 2 books, and then I found out something that happens that I just didn't feel like putting myself through. So I didn't bother. So yeah. But this is like a Midsummer Night's Dream retelling type of thing. I mean, it's kind of cool. Just not really for me, honestly. Next up, we have A Court of Thorns and Roses. Obviously, y'all know this was a heck yes. Bought all 3 books when there were only 3. Nope, 3.5. Bought all 3.5 when there were only 3.5. No regrets. I have never turned back since. It changed my life and will continue to do so. So there's that. Almost didn't read the 2nd book though. Like, if you've read it, you know. And you know me. And you probably know why I was hesitant, what I found out that I was hesitant to read the 2nd book about. Really glad I did though. Really glad I did. Life-changing series. The next book is, this isn't even the 1st book. My mom has the 1st book, but the Poldark series. I did buy the whole series. I have only read the 1st book. I keep saying, I started the 2nd book. I got like 20 pages in. I keep saying I'm gonna read it, and I still intend to. I don't know that I should have bought the whole series before reading any of them though, because now I feel like I have to read it. And it's not that I don't want to. Like, it's a good series. It's just not, I'm not really a historical fiction person. I was hoping that I could be after Outlander because I love Outlander, but like, Outlander's just in a league of its own. Like, it's not even really just historical fiction, you know? Like, this is just true historical fiction, and I just don't know that I'm that kind of girl. But I'm still trying. I have not given up here. Next up, we have the Lunar Chronicles. Absolutely yes. This is, the 1st book is a Cinderella retelling, but in like a dystopian version of, I think, China, New Beijing. and we've got like Cinder, who's a cyborg or like a part cyborg, and there's like a prince, and then each book adds a different fairy tale, but it's like added to the same story. So you still have the same characters, like we follow Cinder through the whole series, but each book adds new characters from a different fairy tale, and it's so much fun. I absolutely adore this series. I read it so quickly, and I mean the last book is like 800 pages and I read it in a day. So there's that. Next up we have the Lux series. Also, no hesitation here, absolutely loved this series. So glad that I owned all the books before I started reading them because I flew through it so fast. I could not put it down. This book is kind of like sci-fi aliens. We have our main character Katie, and her next door neighbor Damien is an alien. He hates her because she's human, but like, does he really hate her? Does he? Anyways, they're forced to spend some time together for reasons, and it spirals out of control from there. Super fun. Next up, we have Uninvited. This is a duology. Our main character is Davy, and she is living in a futuristic world. I mean, it's really our world, just like ever so slightly in the future. Like, technology hasn't really changed much, but they can now test for HTC, which is HTS, homicidal tendency syndrome. So basically, if you test positive for this gene, you're more likely to kill someone in the future or like be violent in the future. So these people that are testing positive for this gene are marked, and they're sent to special schools, and then they're like separated from society, and it becomes this whole big thing. And Davy tests positive and her entire life falls apart. She's kicked out of her private school. She is forced to go to this public school, except all the HTS carriers are like kept in one room that's like literally like a cage. And there she meets some other carriers, and you know, there's a lot of really great commentary in here on like human rights. The first book was amazing. I loved it. The second book absolutely ruined it, and I didn't even finish it. So that was disappointing. But honestly, the first book was so good. I would still recommend it, just maybe if you're not me and don't get extremely hurt by this one specific thing that continues to pop up in books. Next up, we have A Curse of Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. I did buy the whole series, and I'm kind of glad that I did. It's not my favorite fantasy romance series ever, but I'm kind of glad I bought the whole series before starting it, because I feel like if I hadn't, I might not have ever gotten around to reading the next book. And I'm glad I did, because I liked the second book better than the first. But the first book follows our main character, Harper. And Harper is basically dragged into this fantasy world where she meets Prince Ren, and it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling from there. That's it. The second book actually follows a secondary character, Gray, who I liked way more than anybody else in the book. Like, that was the whole reason I kept going with the series, was for Gray. So there's that. I'm kind of glad I did, because I probably wouldn't have read the rest of the series if I didn't. So sometimes it works out, kind of. Those are some series that I bought the entire series before reading the first book. As you can see, honestly, sometimes it works out great, sometimes not so great, and sometimes kind of somewhere in the middle. It's probably a good thing, but also like, did I really need to? So let me know in the comments, is this something that you do? Like, do you buy a whole series? Do you buy a book before you read it? I know some people will not buy a book unless they've already read it, and I don't know how you do that. I mean, I do it more now, but like, I just want to own them all. That sounds really bad. Let me know in the comments if this is something you struggle with as well, and whether or not it usually works out for you, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!